Welcome to the Manual Channel. I am your host, Dan Gall, and today our guest is Jason McCarthy, the founder of GORUCK. Jason is a former Green Beret who founded GORUCK with the goal of bringing military-grade quality and a sense of adventure into everyday life. What started as a gear company has grown into a movement with thousands of people embracing rucking as a lifestyle and community-driven fitness activity. But before we get started, don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe. And with that, let's go. Jason, welcome. I'm really excited to have you on the show.
Thanks, man. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, and I also want to thank you for your service. I really appreciate what you've done for the country.
That was fun, man. Thanks for paying the bills, you and the US taxpayer. Got to go
Yeah,
awesome places with incredible people and do some fun stuff and some hard stuff. But just because it's hard doesn't mean it's also not fun.
yeah, and obviously a lot of life experiences for you, which have led you to where you are today. And hopefully, with everything that's going on down in the Gulf of Mexico, you and your family are safe as well.
We're in Jacksonville Beach, Florida, right? This is the geography lesson of Florida, which I love to tell. So we're on the westernmost point of the East Coast. If I were here and I would show you my things, Florida kind of goes like that, and then it goes up. And so the way hurricanes work is the pray for the people who are close to where that's going to land, because when you have a cat 5 or even a cat 4, I mean, but a cat 5, wherever that lands, it is just destruction, right? But where the hurricane continues is typically less just out and out destruction. So, it's got to cross the whole state. It's got to do all sorts of different stuff like that. And we're kind of out of the path a little bit now. So there'll be a lot of hard work to do in South Florida again. A lot of people displaced. So we're fortunate where we are here, though.
Well, I'm glad to hear that you and the family are safe. And yeah, it's everybody's worried and praying for lives are going to be impacted. So, hopefully we can have the best outcome that can be possible after the storm. I do want to go into Go Ruck real quick. Well, not real quick.
That thing,
That's
huh?
the whole conversation of today. You and Go Ruck. So like, um, what was the original vision for Go Ruck, and how has that evolved over time?
Yeah, I listened to your intro and it makes it seem like there was just this sort of plan and then just been executing against that. Nothing could be further from the truth. I mean, there just was no real vision. There was no real plan. It just was kind of incrementally. I mean, it's kind of how do you chart a course through land that nobody's ever been through? I mean, how do you get through the Darien Gap or whatever it might be, right? I mean, there might be a couple people help you along the way, but that's tough going. And for me, it was more complicated because I didn't actually want to be in business. My wife was in the CIA. I was in the army. My goal was to get back to serving our country in a different way or something. And this thing, I was in West Africa at her house, that her diplomatic housing, and I was trying to figure out what I should do next. And I was going to move there. And she's like, "Oh, you should do the GORUCK thing," because I had built her a GORUCK or a Go bag to put in her house and in her car in case, they love a good coup in Africa. So in case there was a coup, AKs in the streets and RPGs and all that stuff, she'd have, some supplies to sort of help her get through this girl that I love desperately still. So that just led to a million different terrible decisions, but we just kept surviving. And if you survive long enough, eventually you're a survivor.
And you two met. Did you guys meet in high school?
We did before sophomore year of high school. So we went
Okay.
to, I sat next to the pretty girl in English class, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Took me. It
And
only took me a decade to ask her out, though. So,
hey, true love, man. And especially through all those, you guys stayed connected through your service as well.
well, we were married when early on in my service, and then she joined the agency, and so it was just chaos, man. I mean, I was in Iraq, and she was in war-torn West Africa, and then I was in Colorado, and she was in a different Central Africa. I mean, like I'm visiting her on block leave for a month, and straight from Iraq. So it's a weird thing because I'm in that kind of war mindset, which is a real thing. Doing base fortifications to her housing and, getting her go rucks in her car and helping out, other folks at the embassy with what they could do just in case. And that's just where I was. And now, sometimes I'm just a dude in flip-flops at Publix buying, groceries for Taco Tuesday or something. Like, I'm wearing flip-flops out? What if there's a horrible thing that goes on and I'm in flip-flops? I will hate myself. There's a lot to wrestle with there.
Does she deal with that kind of mindset shift as well?
You can't unlearn your training, right? I mean, it's hardwired. It's kind of your parents are your parents. Where you grew up or didn't is where you grew up or didn't. Your formative years are formative for a reason. And in our 20s, those were also very formative years, and they were very intense years.
Mm.
I mean, I'm 45 now, same as my wife, because we're the same age. I mean, I was 22 when the towers fell, and that was right out of college. And like that's just a very impressionable age for something like that to happen at a time when I felt I needed to do something about it. So the lessons that were learned at that time under such intensity were, I mean, I will carry them with me everywhere I go. And she wasn't as well versed in kind of tactics and all of that stuff, but yeah, she's got some of that too. We're a good team is kind of the short answer of what I was going to espouse on. But yeah, we're a good team. She thinks about things a little bit differently than I do, and together it's a good team
Is she part of the business as well now?
since day one. So since 2000, even before it was a business, in 2007, late 2007, and her house in Africa, West Africa, is where it sort of came up from. And she, runs a bunch of partnerships and community, and is just the glue around here to lots of stuff. And that's not to diminish the a real executive role that she has as well.
So what are the roles that she plays and you play, and how do you build off those strengths and fill the weaknesses?
Well, I mean, I would say that I am a lot more of a mad scientist, you know. I don't know where ideas come from. And I read a really, really good book. And oftentimes the best business books to me are not business books at all. They're sort of books that help you understand how you think, because that's the most important part of business is adapting and how you think and all of that. And it was On Writing by Stephen King, the only Stephen King book I've ever read, and I absolutely love it. So I need to read something else of his because I've had other people tell me that he's great. Anyway, I digress. But he basically said you can ask me lots of things about the mechanics of writing, or why not to use too many adjectives or things like that, or that plot is king stuff. All of these great kind of storytelling things that he has, which by the way, marketing at its best is storytelling. But he goes, but you can't ask me where ideas come from. And so, I think there are some of those. How do you live in a world and then you take peanut butter and jelly and put it on a sandwich and it's just this wonderful thing that billions of people enjoy? And so there's a fair amount of that stuff that I do. And a lot of it leverages the physical training and team aspect that I grew up around. Then it takes that and combines it with team training in the Army with extreme both individual and team performance in the Army, with the mindset of going to war and finding your own mortality and losing people that you love and will love for the rest of your life, and just the hardships that entails. The hard parts of life have softened me. My kids have really made me more empathetic. My wife is through the charts empathetic and has emotional intelligence through the roof, whereas I'm more, hey, there's that wall over there, like head first, karate chop it first, like kick it down, get a bulldozer, just till the wall falls down, right? Like let's do it. And so every once in a while she'll kind of pull me away and be like, hey, let's rest your head and let's find another way to do this, stuff like that. And it's a really good kind of sanity check on that. And so, she's also manages the community here, and which is just with 500 ruck clubs around the country and the world. These are people that we know, love, and respect, who are out doing what we think is God's work, bringing people together in the real world through physical fitness and rucking. We want to validate all of their efforts and all of their energy, and she's much better at doing that than say I am. I can love and respect all of them, and the fact that they serve the mission. I just get fixated on the mission. And Emily is very involved with how that mission happens and how people feel that are around that mission. So it's not all kind of easy. I'm not asking for easy. There's certain pain points that I'm obtuse to that she sees, and then there's certain walls that they just need to come down.
Yeah.
And so that's the yin yang.
Yeah, and so it sounds like she's running the branding and community and events kind of aspect and kind of forward facing with your customers, and you're more on the back end and maybe running the business and making those decisions, but also maybe product focused as well.
Yeah, I'm not really into the ops or the finance side that much. I mean, I've kind of been forced to do it, so I can do it more quickly now, but we've built other people around us that are, say, better at doing that. I'm very involved in down to the stitch count on new gear development, gear, footwear, apparel, you name it, very, very involved. And I've just found on that front that the only real answer is obsession. There's no kind of, oh, that's fine. Yeah, it's pretty good, right? I mean, that's the enemy. That's just the devil in all of this. And my goal is for us to create world class gear that will last forever, or as damn near close as we can get it. And that's really, really hard to do across a broad array of products. And so there's a ton of behind the scenes testing. I mean, I'll give you just one anecdote because we were just going through a new product or a revamp of an old product that's actually more of a new product. And when we build a sample, it's easy to give it to someone and say, oh, do you like it? Like, that's the horrible question,
Yeah.
right? The right question to ask is, tell me why you hate it.
Mm.
And I want you to list, because give people the power, the empowerment, and give people the sort of freedom to not please you, to be negative. And that now we're dealing with gear, right? So it's important to say that's can be different than dealing with people, because this is about the work. You
Yeah.
put the work on the table and hey, this is about the work. And yes, what your tone is or how you talk with somebody, it can lead to hurt feelings reports, and I get that. Everybody has to be on the same page that this is about the work, and the mission is to create the best and to accept no compromises. And so when that is the focus, I mean, if you get your feelings hurt because this stitch line is wrong, like it's in the wrong place.
Hmm.
So it's got to go up, because when I was using it, this happened at this part of my body, and I'm not the only one that this is going to happen to. This can happen to hundreds of thousands of people if we do it like this. So let's not do that. And so it's just a bunch of that stuff. And then I end up doing kind of bridging the military and civilian worlds a little bit more. M is a little bit less forward facing, but very forward facing to our community. And she does a lot of our events. She goes to them a lot. She just came back from an all women's weekend in San Diego. She did 5 events throughout the weekend. I mean,
Wow.
it was showed up on, I think, Monday morning after the Sunday red eye, because man, West Coast to East Coast is brutal.
Oh yeah.
And so that's kind of where she enjoys shining in that light, and not spotlighting, but shining, right? She just enjoys the people, and they're great.
I watched a few videos of you, and I find it really, really interesting. And one of the things that I remember you saying was, when you're rucking, everybody's got different types of bodies, right? So some people like having the weight more on the shoulder, some like using the waist strap maybe to relieve some of that pressure. When you're coming up with new product ideas and designs and testing these, since you're so involved, how do you think about that when you get a new product or when you're designing? How do you what is that process like?
I found that it's best to start out with what real world problem you're actually trying to solve, as opposed to trying to invent customers that might have problems. I mean, like, this is just a horrible, horrible, because nobody can ever win,
Yeah.
right? There's no kind of, you're chasing ghosts. Every, like, well, Bob might not like this. Well, Jane likes it, and then Jane won't like this, and Susie will like that, and it's just a circular logic until the end of time. It's kind of, for me, if you say, okay, do people want to have something with a hip belt on it? Okay, cool. We can build something with a more robust hip belt, but overall, I mean, I would say most people when rucking at a reasonable weight should not use a hip belt. And rucking, the definition for anybody that doesn't know it, is put weight in a backpack and walk. So, and the reason why I will tell you, you see hiking packs and all this stuff, and people have the hip belts, most of which end up not being load bearing. It's so that you can have, lickies and chewies right at your cell phone right next to you, which is a completely different function than what we're talking about. To
Yeah.
say, okay, well, I want this to be load bearing. Okay, well, now you've got a problem of the length that the rucksack needs to be, because if you're going to do a shoulder carry, which at 30 pounds, I do a 45 pound, my daily carry is just a big slab of iron that's wrapped in some ballistic nylon with a little bit of padding, and it feels great. I do it all the time. If this were not recorded as a video, I would be out rucking while we do this, and it just works for me. I sleep better. It's good exercise, all those things, right? I don't have a hip belt on it. There is a sternum strap, which I basically never use. And the reason why is because it pulls my shoulder back, my posture is in correct alignment. And the second that you start putting stuff all over your hips, it changes your gait, and it will distribute the load if you turn it load bearing. So then it has to be long enough to be on your shoulders and to sit correctly on your hips. Well, that works just fine if you need a 90-liter hiking pack that you've got to fit all this stuff in, but it doesn't work that well when you want it to be more compact and simple and all of that. So, I mean, whether it's, hey, someone with this body type, say male, female, wants to ruck, the male side is easier for me personally. The female side, there's a lot more folks around that it's a little bit more testing, some different anatomy that makes it a little bit different. So shoulder straps might need to be a little bit different, or take your pick. Not as if you're not going to carry as much weight, do they need to be as thick? The answer is probably not, right? So if you want to build a rucksack that's going to, like our ruckers say, that you want to be able to put, I mean, I've done a 100-pound mile in our rucker. It's not comfortable, but 100 pounds ain't comfortable, and the shoulder straps can accommodate that, and that's fine, right? If someone's only ever going to go up to 30 pounds, do they need the same thickness of shoulder straps? I mean, probably not. Now, the benefits of a thinner shoulder strap are that it's, say, doesn't feel as bulky. There's less kind of friction around areas that might move while you're rucking. And there's just trade-offs. And so as you get into this, the more refinement that you give any piece of gear, eventually you reach a trade-off. And the trade-off, the simplest one would be, okay, let's say a weight trade-off. I can make this tougher if I make it out of a heavier fabric, but it's going to weigh more. Or I can make this out of a lighter fabric and it's not going to be as tough, but it's going to weigh less. At some point, those are the properties of what you're going for. Not something's not going to do better for everything. I mean, we built one ruck called GR1. It's a little bit heavier, and back in the day, everyone's like, "Oh, you can't have a 4-pound backpack." It's like, this thing, you can drag this thing behind a Humvee from Baghdad to Basra, and it will survive if it's got 80 pounds in it. You'll be fine, right? And it felt really good. And then we said, hey, you should add weight to this, make it even heavier. And we just kind of, if someone's got some criticism of you, give them something to really criticize, you know,
Yeah.
right? All this sort of snarky BS. I mean, you can keep it, man, right? Like, have some faith in the process that brought you to the best if you believe that it's the best. So I could nerd out on this stuff all day long, but ultimately it's trade-offs that reach the end. How thick are the shoulder straps? Is there, if you say, hey, I've got to have load-bearing hip belts, that's a whole construction change. You have to be able to, everything changes. It's like doing something in isolation. For instance, if you say, well, I have a duffel bag, I just want to add shoulder straps to it. I mean, it's going to be something that serves everyone, serves nothing, serves no one,
Yeah.
right? It's like, oh, but you're selling it online as all these arrows, and look, you can do all this stuff with it. And then people are distracted. People are not dumb. They're just distracted
Yeah.
and busy. And they say, oh, okay, that sounds cool. And so they buy it, and then it kind of just is a disappointment. And I'd rather just not go that route ever.
Yeah, while you were talking, the quote you just said was exactly what I was thinking of, which is if you try to make something for everybody, you make it for nobody. And it sounds like also, the distraction part is really interesting because it causes consumer confusion. They don't know what to get necessarily. I think that's one of the biggest, like for me, I always have to research like crazy what is the right thing to do. And if there's too many options, and if there's just like one option, it's like, okay, I know I want to do this. I'm just going to get that and I'll run with it. And if I need to make adjustments, I'll figure out how to do that. Right.
Yeah, I mean, the problem as it comes in the existing landscape, and this is why you're seeing so many people looking for authentic kind of users. And I'll just point to why people will Google something and then at the end of it, they'll put Reddit, right? Because they want an actual forum where people will speak freely. And then you can kind of gauge what the masses have to say about something, right? As opposed to the way that it works and pick your big company, right? Your big gear company. I mean, the person who is designing something is different than the person who is building it. Because designing something in R&D and then getting it built to scale, that those are different processes. They're not overseeing the quality control. They're not overseeing a lot of that stuff. It's got to run through the ops chain, and they're like, well, what does this zipper cost? Well, what does this zipper cost? Well, if we use this one, it costs less. The Wonka machine at these big places is a really it's a bad place to go through if you care about the purity of something. So then you've got people in marketing. Once people in marketing get their hands on it, they'll basically say anything and put arrows anywhere and flashing lights anywhere to get you to buy it based on features and benefits or whatever will sell better, right? I mean, it's the nature of the beast. I'm not hating on the game. I'm just saying that this is the game,
Yeah.
right? And there's all these disconnects from all these different angles that go in to making or building something that probably or could have started out with a really pure idea, but then did you buy it to do what it was intended to do, or was this something that just was kind of you're at Target and you've got this hang tag that says this thing about the product? Do you think that the designer actually designed that hang tag? No.
No. Yeah.
Think they had any input into that hang tag? Nope. Same deal with Amazon and same deal across the board, right? It's hard. It's hard for me as someone who's in the stitch count side of stuff to then see everything absolutely through to the way that it's presented 100% of the time, everywhere that it goes online. So I get it, right? It's just at some point, this is actually the value of a brand to say culturally, our team knows that we overbuild out of everything and that it has to work. And when in doubt, remove stuff, don't add it. And there's just certain values that we hold dear. I mean, there's a lifetime guarantee on all our stuff. So we see it. If we fail, we see it. And that's a great forcing function that other brands just don't have.
Yeah. And that's the benefit of buying from I don't know the size of GoRuck, but from a instead of a huge conglomerate, somebody a business that's smaller that is passionate and cares about the product that they put out, and that perception from the consumer, the trust that they build from that quality of the product. What you are speaking of comes with years of experience and when you mentioned earlier, like when you started GoRuck, there wasn't like the purpose of, oh, we're going to build a business and here's the path we're going to do it all on and everything else. So like, building a business, and I'm assuming this is your first business, there's a lot of ups and downs. You're learning a ton. There's a lot of mental toughness that I think comes into play as being an entrepreneur. And obviously, from your experience and your background, you have methods of dealing with that. But is it different? And like, can you maybe highlight or share a moment where you had like a really like hard decision to make or something like critical was happening in the business, which would, in a lot of instances, make people just kind of give up or not know how to deal with it. And you talk about like pounding that wall until it breaks. Like what are some of the lessons you've learned on how to deal with those types of issues that you could share?
So when it comes to product, I'll give you two counter examples to a company, say, GoRuck size, a much bigger company. It has to do with product obsession. It takes me 5 seconds to talk to somebody to figure out if they're a real product person, right? I could probably just look at their stuff and say, is this a product person or is this a marketer? right? Because those are completely different things to me. And if you look at obsession is a quality. And so if you look at Steve Jobs at Apple, enormous company. I mean, that dude was obsessed
Yeah.
with the final product, and he had the power internally to just sort of transform the products to bend to his will. And that's really hard to do, right?
Mm.
And the biography on him went, it was Walter Isaacson's, I think, went a lot into that, and those were my favorite parts in looking at that, his life. The second is Elon Musk. I mean, removing the personalities from these people that are just for the purposes of talking about product, right? They obsess. I mean, Elon Musk is designing the door handles. It's nuts. He's spending time on the factory floor doing the things. I mean, the first trip that I went on to our footwear factory, Paul, who's, worked at, he sold 1 billion pairs of shoes that he designed, right? He invented the Reebok pump. He's managed our footwear for almost a decade, right? This is the first time I've ever seen a CEO on a, and we're buddies by this point. Like we, land at Saigon at midnight and he's like, "Hey, what are we doing?" I'm like, I don't pretend to like we got two lives. We're going out,
Yeah.
right? So we burned it down in Saigon. We're at factory tours all over the place, work hard, play harder. But I mean, getting into the actual smallest details imaginable. And I don't know if that's considered very cool anymore, right? I think there's this perception of hard work isn't cool anymore. Like, let me just show you how easy stuff is. I'm living an opposite life, but I love how I'm living it. I enjoy obsessing over the absolute smallest things until they're just perfect and
Yeah.
correct for the problem that's at hand. And so sometimes that's at the factory. A lot of times it's in the R&D side. Sometimes you do everything right and it doesn't actually work, which means it's all wrong, which means you have to theories and reality when they line up, that's a beautiful day, right? Celebrate, the gods have granted you a bountiful feast that day,
They made it
right?
easy that day, right? Yeah.
It doesn't usually work that way. That's why I hate the word should. This should work. I don't give a shit if it should work. Does it work? Yes or no? And then you're saying, okay, well, if I change this, would it work now? And then at some point you say, well, I can't change this without changing all these other things. And that's when it gets hard, right?
Hmm.
This is where Steve Jobs comes in and says, great artists ship, because you have to actually ship stuff. You could tinker with stuff until the end of time. And Da Vinci says, great work is never finished, it's only abandoned. Man, can I relate to that? Because I could sit here and improve everything until forever. It just would go around in a circle at some point. And for what? Think about quitting. I'll get to a business case in a second, which is more, not enough cash, too many people, what to do in that case. Those are not fun. But when it comes to product, it's sort of, at what point do you have to just quit? I hate the word. I don't enjoy that at all. At what point do you just quit though? Right? Like, this just doesn't work. And well, what if this and this and this? Well, if you try that for so many years, and I'll say, man, we tried these hiking pack things for so long. And the world doesn't need another hiking pack just because it says GORUCK on it. We wanted to make our stamp on them. You can go to REI and find a million of them. And some of them are actually okay, right? What could we do that would add actual value to first our lives? And we travel a lot, we hike a lot. And so that's something, I don't know, you probably see it in 2025. It's done. It just needs a little bit of love on some accessories and a little bit of stuff like that. But that's been forever. And it sort of came and went, and we needed to go do some other projects. So we did some other projects and we solved those. And it's just, so many projects are going on. When do you say, okay, this is good enough? There's no easy button there,
Yeah.
right? When is this good enough? When is it ready to actually build and say, I stand behind this? Those are really hard things to do. So on the business front, I mean, I haven't had a moment at GoRuck where I've said, oh, I think this is it, other than maybe really, really early on, but I just wasn't committed. I was in the middle of business school. I was on the post 9/11 GI Bill. I still wanted to go join the paramilitary side of the CIA. There was just because it's a great way to serve your country. There's a lot of great ways to serve. That's one of them, and it was tied to my path, and I wanted to go do that, and I could see it. And so that was kind of you don't get to lead two lives, you get to lead one life,
Yeah.
and I had to make a pick. And so the biggest impediments were not being committed. And I think that when you are the hardest things would come when you are committed and it's still not working out. And I think people are the most rewarding part of life, and yet they're also the most challenging. And so we've had one and a half instances at GORUCK where we had to do some layoffs, and those are just not fun, right? And so the half was because we did get better after the first one, which was in 2013 early on. I mean, you start to see things go up and up and up, and you think that's going to last forever. And it just kind of, too much inventory, too many people, costs are too high, no money in the bank. I mean, it's not a fun situation to be in, and you just have to kind of do the right thing and treat people as well as you can. And by the way, you can treat them really well. People get it. So I found that explaining the why and taking responsibility, absolute responsibility, was the best way. 7 years later, 6 years later, it was kind of a little bit of the same thing. It's just sometimes we've gotten structurally lopsided. So you say, okay, there's too many people doing this kind of work. And it's like you have meetings about meetings and meetings, and people in management are just arguing over stuff that doesn't actually matter. And then there's more reports and there's more meetings. And you can lose sight of the fact that the value is actually created out there. Go get it. That doesn't feel good either, though, is my point, right?
Yeah.
To say, man, in our hiring plan, we got extremely lopsided, and now we have to kind of make some adjustments. And it's people didn't necessarily do anything wrong. It's just collectively we didn't get the outcomes, or we weren't able to adapt as we may have liked.
Yeah, and those types of the decisions and the process or the experience of going through those as they're hard to train for. Like you can't train for that as an entrepreneur until you've gone through it. I would say, like you've got to for me, you ask people like for their experience that you can maybe learn from. You can always watch videos, etc. But once you're in it and you're doing and dealing with those types of issues, they're you learn through experience. So when you talk about having to make those decisions and work with others within the business to work through that, and you're dealing with a lot of distractions, like what advice would you give people to stay resilient and adapt and make those hard decisions when dealing with those challenges? What are those? For me, like some people have a hard time sleeping when you're faced with those things, and you deal with low energy and fear and indecision. What are some of the tools you use?
What I don't think there is all of a sudden you're going to become someone that you're not. I think that there seems to be too much perception or too much thought behind this idea that people are born great leaders, or they're not, or they're born ready for pick your. This is just a way of our fears kind of tearing ourselves down. And I think that to be able to make hard decisions and do it well, you have to live a life where you're able to make hard decisions, both for yourself, for your business. Sometimes hard decisions to everyone's benefit. Like this isn't just bad days. It's just, hey, this is a hard decision. For our team, we're just not going to pursue this partnership anymore, or we're just not, we're not going to go after that. We're going to do this. I don't know. Everybody's a little bit different, but you don't all of a sudden wake up and say, "Oh man, like I got to lay off half my team." If that's the first hard decision you're going to have to make in a long time, I mean, I think we need to go back to the root cause, not to the band-aid on how you're going to do that with some management consultant. That said, for me personally, which is probably a more interesting answer, anyway, for me, I mean, not sleeping is a big problem. The only thing that works to overcome stress is exhaustion. The only thing that works to get exhaustion is a lot of physical activity. So a casual 45-pound ruck for an hour turns into a 60-pound ruck for 2 hours, or a 75-pound ruck for 2 hours, while I'm talking to somebody a mentor, somebody that I would trust to listen to. Like I end up talking with people that would, you got that thing where someone calls and you know immediately how you feel about it when you see them their name on your phone, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's a good test. First off, unrelated to what you're asking, but that's a really good test. Work with the people that you're excited if you see them pop up on your phone, and don't work with the people that don't, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's no matter what money's on the line or what, like, live like that. But the second is do the converse of that as well, which is so many people are reluctant, and I found dudes are even worse at this. Dudes are a lot more reluctant to ask for help. Make your peace with the fact that you don't have to call them feelings, but talk about what's going on. Talk about whatever you might with a beer in your hand around the campfire with some buddies, whatever. But call somebody that, call your dad if your dad's still around. Call your brother if you got a brother. Call your a buddy. Talk about something else or talk about the thing. I don't know, right? But figure out a way, and while you do that, maybe try it with 45 pounds on your back and figure out a way. So if your brain is just exploding, I mean, it's kind of like trying to read a novel that you're not into. If your brain's going to be everywhere else, don't fight it. Don't try to read the novel, right?
Yeah.
What you need to do is kind of lean in, listen to yourself and lean in to whatever is going on with you emotionally, and also figure out a way to get exhausted, because you'll think better, you'll sleep better, and then you'll think better. And this is a multi-day, multi-week, multi-month, multi-year issue. It's not just oh, I get to press one button today and we're done here. Take care of yourself. That's the sum.
I love that. And the picture in my head right now is that you literally have a rucksack like sitting next to you at all times. And the office environment I think is, super unhealthy for people in general. And, I love to get outside. When COVID happened, actually, it was really good for me because I found myself getting up and leaving the house. I live on a Christmas tree farm, so I would like go walk around the perimeter of the property just to like clear my head and also have those phone calls. Like a phone call for me was an opportunity to get up out of the seat and away from my computer. And then for me, exercise has always traditionally been go lift weights. Go for a run, something where I had to prepare, get some gym, gear on or whatever like that. And the thing that I'm hearing really is that with a rucksack, you can literally just put it on and just go and use that as your opportunity to distract your mind, get that exhaustion, which helps with the stress in general that you would get from exercise. So, is that what I'm hearing correctly of how you utilize it and what you're saying there?
I just baseline movement with 45 pounds on my back, and I do it a lot. And
Yeah.
look, I mean, since the beginning, Americans have questioned authority. This is who we are, right? And I think it's time for us to kind of return to doing a lot more of that, but to do it for ourselves with our own lives. And there's just a lot of snake oil that's I know how the machine works. I'm in and around it all the time. The marketers get a hold of something and they're selling you an easy life, and you got a lot of stuff going on, and you think that that's going to help. And some of it does, right? I mean, you know, disposable diapers are a really great thing, right? I hope we make them more environmentally friendly over time. I am definitely willing to spend money on those. We're out of the diaper stage now, but it's like there's just sort of exercise is an invention, and it's a enormous industry, and people are trying to get their hunk of the pie and grow it, and they'll do basically anything. Hey, if you buy this band, your whole life's going to be wonderful, and you're going to get a perfect booty, and if you're a dude, you're going to have a 12 pack and like chiseled abs, and it's just ridiculous. I
Yeah.
mean, if you starve yourself and you do a little bit of whatever the thing is, like that's great. That will work. But what I'm saying is exercise is an invention, right? Your walk where you're talking with your friend, that's or business stuff or whatever it might be. And I living on a Christmas tree farm, that sounds really cool. That would
Mhm.
be fun. That is quote quote exercise. It's just movement. And so for me, I don't have an infinite amount of time in life, and I have enough lessons to know that I shouldn't pretend like I do. And so figuring out a way to stack things together that I can. I mean, what's your actual goal? My goal is to feel better and be healthy. I want to be a better dad. I want to be a better person. Well, if you look at all that, you say, okay, well, being strong is better than being weak. Being active is being better than inactive. Being able to climb the mountain is better than not being able to climb the mountain. I say this, these are facts. This is without judgment.
Yeah.
And so you sort of say, okay, so what else? I want to be able to walk more of my life the older that I get. I want to be able to, tie my shoes. I want to be able to do the basic things that bring me freedom. And so much of that is tied to happiness, is tied to empowerment, is tied to feeling good about who I am and what I'm going to do in this world. And so we all just need to find out how to do more of that. Like, do it. You can't buy it. You've got to do it.
Yeah.
And you can't get someone else to do it for you. You have to actually do it. And for me, gone are the days when working every single waking second on GORUCK and I'm running events all over the world every weekend, or driving in a car to 48 states with my dog, running events and getting on planes all over the place. I mean, I I am more protective than ever over the time that I have, because first off, I love my wife, I love my kids, I love my family, and I also really like them. I enjoy spending time with them. That's really important. That's really important to me, to spend time with them. And I don't want to miss their baseball games. I mean, we had a baseball game last night. It started at 8 p.m. and ended at 10 because we're getting stuff in before the hurricane. It was awesome. Under the lights, I didn't miss a pitch. It was great. You know,
Yeah.
well, at some point, I'm also very mission driven. I want to excel at the mission of changing lives through rucking and bringing people together in the real world through rucking and other things. I mean, yeah, you can call me the rucking guy and that's all fine and dandy, but I care a lot about community and empowerment. And I care a lot about building stuff that's great for the environment that will last forever, and a million different other things, right? That requires time and effort and energy and obsession. And I don't have too much time. I have a very limited amount of time. So if I can take a phone call in the middle of the day and get my quote, quote, exercise in, right, with 45 pounds on my back, and then I look up at the end of the day and I got 14,000 steps and I didn't quote, quote, exercise at all, but then I sleep great at night, right? And then I wake up the next day and I feel good and I'm ready to go get after it again. And I don't have to miss the baseball games. And when there's a scheduled 4 p.m. practice for my kids, I end up showing up and like, yeah, let's do it. I'm here to help. Right. So I go field balls and I'm just around. People just got to make it work for them. That's my point. Like
Yeah.
getting chained to whatever you think you're chained to, you're a lot more free than you think that you are. And this exists in all of our blood, right? Question why you're doing something. Why do you like what matters? And do you need to do the things that you're doing now in order to achieve what you want most in life? Yes or no? Right? So start making these have these conversations with yourself. What matters to you? And people will make long lists, and then here's the gotcha, right? Show me your bank account and your calendar, and I'll tell you what really matters to you. And I'm not a money motivated person at all, right?
Mhm.
But show me your bank account and show me. And so my bank account is basically GORUCK, from the standpoint of it's supporting the mission that we have here, which is, and my time is very mixed now. My time is when I'm here and I'm here, and I'm trying not to carve out 2 hours a day for me, to go to the gym by myself with my headphones in, staring at myself in the mirror in between sets. Although I do strength training on the weekends with my buddies and my, and their families, and all our kids are running around our neighborhood here. And we're just in the driveway, like bring the stuff out, put it in the driveway. Anyone is welcome. Right. And we get to do that together. And that's community building. That's good for us. It's good for me. It's good for it,
Good for the
but
head, right?
it's
Yeah.
great for the head. And
Yeah.
so all this other stuff though is, how do you want to spend your time to get to feel the way that you want to feel? And I'm not talking fleeting feelings. I'm talking to feel empowered, to feel content, if you will, because happiness is another buzzword, but to feel content with who you are, and are your priorities in line? And if you're always chasing, if you're chasing, like what are you chasing? Like if
Yeah.
your salary doubled, are you going to be happier? Probably not, right? It'll settle right back in, and then you'll be underwater again, and you'll be pedaling too fast, and you'll be chasing this and this. And that's a skeptic's kind of way to approach it, but it's just to say, have the hard conversation about what you think that you want and why, and then spend the time doing that. So to come back to your thing, yes, I have a rucksack next to my desk at the office. I have a rucksack next to my door at my house when the dog needs to go out, which he does. Imagine that. I ruck the dog. When my kids were younger and I had them in the front loader, I had my ruck on my back. And the kids got to be outside in nature. I got to get a little exercise, and I got to get the kids away from mom and me away from mom and give her a little bit of time. There's a way to bake this into your life. If you can't talk to somebody, video recordings being different. But if you can't talk to somebody, hey, that bird's chirping too loud. I mean, whatever, man. Right?
Yeah.
Like, okay, click.
Yeah. I love how you brought that back. And you know, you said so many things that just I had all these points and topics that I want to kind of expand on. But the one thing that I love, being happy is a buzzword. And the thing that I try to remind myself of, which you mentioned, I think, is freedom. Freedom, I think, is really more of the centering word. If you're, like, if you're asking yourself, is this worth doing? Or I have all these things. I have 10, like making that list of 10 things you do throughout the day. What are the things that are don't bring you freedom and bring you like stress? How do you get those things off your plate? But if like I think about when I want to retire, how do I get freedom? Where like freedom to make the decisions and do the things that I want to do, and not being held down by the things that actually cause stress, strife, bad mindset, all those other things. And if I can achieve those things, that means I'm free to do the things that make me happy then, right? That's what brings happiness for me. Um,
Amen.
so with all the rucking topics, and I stalked you a little bit before this video. I saw what you like a video of where you were working out in the driveway using. I believe those are rucksacks as well. They're weighted sandbags, and you're lifting them. You're doing over the head presses and things like that with them. From a rucksack perspective, like when you're doing walking with the weighted bag, like who is that appropriate for? Like for example, I have a blown out knee. I have a torn ACL, MCL, meniscus. I got to have surgery soon on that. For me, I'm like, this seems like a great opportunity for me to still build strength within my leg, but not put too much impact on it. And like potentially when I'm recuperating, it's something I can still integrate in. Who is the ideal customer for you, and who maybe should not do rucking and might think twice about it?
I mean, let's just compare it to other forms of fitness, right? I mean, when you compare it to say running, the force load onto your body per strike when running is 8 times your body weight. I mean, God bless God, because the human body can endure a lot, right?
Yeah.
And do more things that help you figure out that, right? When it's walking, it's 2.7. It's a fraction. And so the gait is what matters. So if you add 20 pounds or 30 pounds, it's still that sum of that weight times 2.7. It's basically walking. I mean, and if you can walk, unless you have, I don't know, a very, very, very fringe case of something that I don't know, I'm probably not qualified to diagnose. I mean, if you can walk, you can rock. Every single movement benefits from resistance. So
Hmm.
if you want to get stronger pecs, you bench press, you add resistance. If you want to, do anything, add resistance, right? Now, the movement of doing the bicep curls or the pull-ups, right? If you add resistance, you'll get stronger. All other things held equal. Your body will adapt. That's the muscles break down, the muscles tear apart, and then they grow back stronger, right? Are we tracking? Walking is the same way. It's
Yeah.
identical. If you want to be able to do something longer in life, then train. This is a great Dr. McGill quote. He's a world leading back doctor, kind of a pioneer in the space. And he said, train the movement, not the muscle, right? So training your biceps, I mean, to do what, right? Look good at the mirror at the gym. It's ridiculous. Like,
Yeah.
what do you want to be able to do? And so when you say, when the movement is walking, if you want to train the movement, right? Like the muscles get trained when you add resistance. It's very, very simple. Since the beginning of time, hunter gatherers went out and they would go kill the animal, and they would put the animal on their shoulders and bring it back to the tribe. And that was dinner, right? The first rucksack was a deer or something. I don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the
Yeah.
OG rucksack. We are literally built to carry. Our whole body is built to do this. And the stronger that we've gotten, the more weight that we've added onto our frame, the harder that is on our body to go run, right?
Yeah.
And so rucking becomes a very viable and very accessible activity that damn near everybody on the planet can benefit from. It's just a question of how much weight. I mean, 10 pounds is rucking, 5 pounds rucking, 50 pounds, 100 pounds, 200 pounds. It's rucking. It's sort of like bench press. 10 pounds, it's still a bench press.
Yeah.
400 pounds, it's still a bench press. Pick which journey do you want to be on? Jogging, great. 12-minute miles, that's running, right? 6-minute miles, great. Same thing. You know, it's just how fast do you want to go? How much resistance do you want to add? I've talked to a lot of strength and conditioning trainers over the years, and it's a very common injury for people in, say, D1 football programs or the NFL, or blown out knees and ACLs and all that are very, very, very common. And so when you look to your recovery journey, I mean, talk to your doctor, man. I'm not a doctor. I got a PhD in pain, but I earned that in some unconventional ways, right? I'm
Yeah.
not a, I'm
Yeah.
not a doctor. And I've made so many mistakes along the way that I've I've got kind of a good bracketed in solution set for most of this stuff. But you're going to start by walking and moving because the body is actually anti-fragile, right? Doctors don't cure you. They set your body up so that your body can cure itself,
Mhm.
right? I mean, so if you break your arm, they set your arm and then your body heals. They're not going in and redoing all the things. The body has to do that. And so as you are encouraged to walk, right, in your recovery, adding a little bit of weight is just the natural progression. And the other part of it is if you do it correctly, your shoulders are back, you get postural gains. If you have to, sit down too much in your recovery, it's kind of forcing the thrust line of your spine to go north south with the curvature, which is natural, as opposed to what people do when they sit down, which now we've become very conscious of this. Our back hunches over, we got text neck, or all these things that are really, it's normal for our day and age, but they're not good for your body, right? And so when you put a rucksack on, it pulls the shoulders back, you can breathe, your chest is open, and keep the weight low so that you don't start to hunch forward, and then you're doing it right. And so listen to your body in that process, but there's no reason why you can't.
I imagine too after surgery, for me, the stiffness, like if you keep your legs moving, you're walking in general, like that helps prevent atrophy in some way with your muscles, I imagine. But I was fascinated when I went rucking for the first time last week, and I didn't feel too like super muscular fatigue, right? Like I was, I felt good after doing
How
it.
much weight? Tell us a little more.
It was just 20 pounds with the rock,
Great.
yeah, with the backpack.
Yeah.
Um, and I was like, I'll
How
just
far'd
go
you
do it
go?
for 30 minutes outside my
Okay.
outside my house, before work. I was like, this is something I can do really easy when I get up. And I grabbed my tea and I held my tea and I just went, rocking for 30 minutes and then, went back in the house and then got ready for work and left for work. So it was something, again, like for me, working out in the morning, like a traditional workout, like I can do it in 30 minutes and 30 minutes is great. But, typically it's like 15 minutes of warm up on the bike and then, do 45 minutes of, some type of strength training and then a cool down of another 10 minutes. And it's an hour, after a while. And then you're sweating, a lot. And even after showering, you're still kind of hot and sweaty and whatever. And I felt really good after this. And I was able to listen to an audiobook while I did it. But later in the day, I noticed like, oh, my left butt cheek is a little bit not sore, but I could feel it, right? And that got me really interested, and actually, I was excited about it to continue doing it. So I think that's what gets me really excited about. I have a couple months until my surgery to continue doing this because it'll add strength to the muscles around my ACL instead of just doing the traditional again, like squats and things like that. And I think it'll for me personally, prepare me better for surgery when I come out of it to be able to continue doing something like that fairly quickly as part of my rehab. So, um, I'm super excited about that. I want to talk, we touched really quick on community, but we didn't really dive in there. And you have mentioned it a few times, like 500 different, I guess the locations probably that people are wrecking together or something like that. Can you kind of talk about like how did the community grow to be so supportive and coming together and did that happen naturally or how did you all kind of, get that going and have such a vision for building a community like that?
A lot of accidents, man. But let's start with kind of the definition and where community comes from. So, in a tribal sense, the tribe would share food in defense. Think about that, right? You're not going to have too much more food if other people are starving. And if someone comes to attack you, you're gonna fight together, right?
Yeah.
So there's this kind of nature of that. And that can only exist in the real world together. So the word it's been just bastardized, right? I mean, there's no such thing as a Facebook community. There's no such thing as a community on Reddit. If you buy a mattress, you're not part of a community. Okay, it's not a thing.
Yeah.
Like when you get to the online stuff, these are forums. That's what they are, and that's why people treat each other the way that they do, is because they're forums. And when you go into it, it's better to just view it like that because the community are the people that are close to you or that you see in the real world. Yes, you can have digital communication with them. Got it, right? It's predicated upon the time that you have spent together in the real world that has mattered and meant something to you. And so for us, when we poured all our deployment savings this circa 2009, 2010, building all of this gear and nobody wanted to buy it, I kind of went back to the other side of my roots, which you're a gear dork in special force. You're assessing what's going to be the best thing for the job because it's literally everything is life. The other side of it was just how to build and train teams. And so I'd done a lot of that. And I went to that playbook and created something called the GORUCK Challenge, which became kind of like Fight Club with backpacks. Meet me on the street corner at 1 a.m. Details not forthcoming. Here's a slab of bricks. Put them in your ruck. Follow me. Jump in the pond. Break through the ice. Well, whatever it might be. Fight Club with backpacks, right? And so people started self-organizing to train for these things wherever they were. Like-minded people connected through this activity, being outside, doing hard things, and a mindset, and they found each other, and that's a lot of magic in that. And so they really self-organized. The first one I remember was GORUCK NorCal. It was out in San Francisco, and because we ran a lot of events out there, it's such a beautiful town for it, with all the hills and all of that stuff. And they would meet up for Christmas parties and do other stuff together, which is fantastic. If you're a business and you're like, people are going to meet all the time and they're going to talk about my stuff all the time and me, that's not community. It's not what you do. It's
Yeah.
not what you do at all. You meet and you talk to people about their life and your life and what's going on, and hopefully not too much talk on the weather, but it's inevitable, right? And you sort of say, okay, so people started to do that. We've put on 10,000 rucking events since 2010, so we've been all over the place that we have put on. We've sent someone and we've done this and we put this on. People started to self-organize, and then they started to kind of take their identity with that, whatever the name of the ruck club might be, and then they would make their own patches and they'd have their own t-shirts, and they kind of identified the flagpole is what we would call it in the military, where the headquarters was. And our job is to then support them, bringing people together, because that's what we're united around. That was the inspiration for this. This was not, hey, it's another trade booth and we've got a tent up. Come and visit the tent and put your email address here. And that stuff's just horrible, right? This was just about meet the people, do the hard stuff, and then you find great people, and then you end up doing a lot of other great stuff with them. And so we've just seen a growth of that because we've supported it. It's not only fun for us, it's not only rewarding, but it's really the only reason why both Emily and I have kept our sort of faith in why we're here is because of the people.
Yeah, and there's a common bond through rucking. It's a struggle, right? When you have something that you have to push through together, and you can do it together, then that creates a greater bond. not just between individuals, but as a community, it sounds like as well. So them meeting to train for your event is just really fascinating that a community sprung out from that. What do you think is next in terms of like future from a community perspective? Where do you see it evolving?
So these things do ebb and flow. I mean, COVID has kind of decimated a lot of the top down big events. I mean, you've still seen the growth of, say, run clubs and ruck clubs, and you've seen people are starving for real world community, and they're being marketed gimmicks.
Yeah.
And people are smart, and over time, people, and it's usually the young folks. They don't feel so beholden to something. They're like, that doesn't make any sense to me. I'm going to do something totally different. And you're seeing more rejection of anti-social media. You're seeing like dumb phones are
Mm.
making a, and whereas I'm like, well, how do I get through the airport? I'll take a dumb phone. How do I get to the airport? And maybe I got to dig in a little bit more. That's the forefront that I want to be on, is kind of pushing for real world community and for bringing people together in the real world. Make rucking bigger than running. Small goals like that.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. It's funny you mentioned the like the dumb phone and stuff like that. Like it's really interesting how the cyclical trends happen because like it's not just in fashion. Like because back in the 70s, what was technology and what was, fitness, uh and as new things get brought into society, the iPhone and computing and they become part of our everyday lives, that cycle of like how can we simplify things, records and tapes are popular again, and boom boxes and stuff like that. It's just so I find that really fascinating. So yeah, I'm really interested to see how your community evolves because there is this also after COVID, everybody was fine working remote and kind of doing alone, but then you start going like, man, it really sucks being alone. I miss that interaction with people. And then, but there's still this kind of weird division of some people are 100% fine with it because it gives them freedom, right? To do some things they can do throughout the day. And other people are just like, I am super social and I miss having those interactions throughout the day with people and being able to solve problems together and having a sense of belonging. I almost used the word community, but I think it's really kind of being belonging with people in a common environment.
I think you can have a community of friends within a work environment for sure. I mean, if you're
Yeah.
doing it right, you can. I mean, I think, look, the first hard question in that to really look at is, why do you work in the place that you work? A lot of people, I get it. A lot of people need a job. We need to work. It's kind of baked into our DNA. It's just, I think people have a lot more freedom than we think. There's places with great cultures, and there's places with terrible cultures, and there's
Mm,
places with no culture.
mm.
And so I'm just unwilling to spend this much time on something that I'm just sort of pissing away the time for. It has to mean something. And it can't mean anything if you're just sort of designing stuff behind an iMac, and it's like you're living this kind of bipolar life. I just don't think that's healthy. I think that we're kind of meant to be part of a team. And I think that the less that people settle on that, which I think is just foundational. I think we're meant to be on a team. And if you don't like the team or you don't like the mission or whatever, I mean, I'm not talking about your first job. It's a hot warehouse in Florida in the summer and you got to pack boxes and you're 18. I mean, do that. That's absolutely a good job to do. I had that.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
and and it'll teach you a lot of things, right? As you learn, you go through, experience a little bit more of the world, you have a lot more freedom than you think you do, and exercise it.
Yeah, especially as you're young, right? I tell my kids like,
How old are your kids?
24 and now 19. And when my younger, so, having the Christmas tree farm, part of my duties, on there was building burn piles of all the tree limbs and the stumps and stuff and having to, burn that up. And it takes a lot of time to go around through that. And I always told my kids, so like, the classic, like, when you grow up, you want to do something that, you enjoy doing, right? So I would ask my young kid my youngest would come and go, "Hey, can I have your money to do XYZ?" And I'm like, "Well, No, I'm not just going to give it to you. You have to work for it. So I need help out on the farm. Why don't you come help me do a burn pile? And he would just like, turn around and walk out. And one day he told me it's not his passion. It's not, you've always told me do something you enjoy. And he
Oh,
turned it around on me and I couldn't believe it. I was like, oh my God. And I go, you're not old enough to make that decision yet. You have to do things that suck, so that you learn what you like and what you don't like, so that later in life you can figure out what those things are that you enjoy and you focus on that. Uh, obviously he thought it sucked, but at the time he had no other option and he wanted money. So it's like, I'll pay you to come out and help with the burn pile, but if you're not willing to do that, then guess what? You don't get any money. But those types of jobs are so critical because they teach hard work. They teach you what sucks, and you might actually find something within that you actually enjoy, and that you can, it's like that little seed in your head that like, oh, maybe it's not moving boxes in a warehouse, but I'm really interested in how they organize and think about distribution and all that other stuff, right?
ask a lot of questions. That's a good one too.
Yeah,
How does
yeah.
this work? Why do you do it like this, man? I know that my wife and I are survivors because if you could die by questioning, our youngest would have killed us already. I mean, this kid is just, it's nonstop. Hey, dad, right? Hey, mom. I mean, we're driving around just yesterday. Hey, mom, what's your favorite kind of grass to mow? And we just,
Wow.
I mean, everybody just laughed so hard. And then she went into this sort of, we have St. Augustine grass here, and golf course grass is, of course, nicer, and all of this stuff. She goes, but Ryan, I have never been asked that in my life. And she, and Emily knows all about these kind of just crazy things, whether it's, the flora and the fauna or whatever. So he got some lesson in the grasses of Florida from mom, and so did I, by the way. And it's just because he asked a lot of questions. And I think even when you love something, even when it is your passion, you're still going to have to go, clear the stumps. You're still going to have to go do all of the really, really nitty gritty work. It goes to the sort of obsession. I mean, if you love it, you're going to be, you have to have an ethic to match it. I'm really optimistic about the next generations, and that's because I see them playing baseball. I'm playing with them, coaching them, or helping them out, or they climbing trees and camping out, and they're showing up to some GORUCK events, and they're showing up with their parents. Like, I'm really optimistic about it. I think everyone's got different lessons to learn, and the last generation always says, well, your generation bad for reason ABC 1 2 3, because this one thing that matters the most to me, you don't seem to have in as many spades, and so you're fatally flawed, and my generation's better. And I think that's just a terrible cycle, a terrible mindset to be in. I think everybody this day and age, though, is getting sold a bill of goods. And I think we need to be reminded that we have a lot more freedom than we think we do.
Hmm.
And it's how we exercise that. And it's not all about me, me, me. It's not all about the sort of glorification of the individual and your wishes, wants, and desires every fleeting minute of your life, right? I
Yeah.
mean, the kid who says this isn't my passion, there's no different than someone spending themselves into perpetual debt off of Amazon because they're addicted to buying, right? I mean, there's no kind of fundamental, like, there's something there, and so how can we really focus on what matters and stop doing what doesn't? And it does matter to learn how to do hard things and follow your passion, but to even, you have to learn the wrong way or in the wrong place. And man, before I joined the army, I was working at a bank, sleeping there 2 to 4 nights a week,
Wow.
right?
Yeah.
And it was just nuts, right? And I learned that I never wanted to be in banking, but I also have a lot of respect for people that, I mean, there's a long hours, and there's a lot of people that are doing that I couldn't get behind that mission. It wasn't something that spoke to me, but the work ethic is there, man. And I learned a lot
Yeah.
from all of those people about how the world goes round. And that was really, I was really grateful for that job at that time. And I got to apply many of those lessons for the rest of my life. I still apply a lot of them, but I also was willing to work really hard. So they kept giving me more stuff and more opportunities to sort of learn even more. And that's kind of how it works.
All those things, they provide value and lessons to, I love this theme, to enable you a future version of yourself to be free, right? Like every single thing you do. I actually love this too. Anything that I do, I feel like I should put my maximum effort into so that I can learn the most out of it, right? If I don't, then I'm doing a disservice to myself more than to anybody else, right? And anything I can take away from that allows me to progress to this ultimate goal of being free to do the things that I love to do that again make me happy or provide whatever that value is to me the most. And we have this theme going on around freedom, and I really value it. And you also, I love the example of your kid asking about what's your favorite type of grass to mow, and what a amazing, interesting question. And it's amazing how kids' minds work to come up with even that type of question. And that leads me into, you get asked a lot about your military background and your life story around that and the impact it had to leading into GORUCK and rucking. But I'm curious, what is a question that you wish people would ask you instead? What is something that you never get an opportunity to speak about?
I mean, I guess there's just this counter side. I mean, everybody wants the sort of simple answer. And look, the simple answer is, the bio cards, right? But what's not interesting in the bio cards is sort of that, my mom was really young when she had me. Had a great relationship with my mom, great relationship with my dad. They separated when I was really young, but I'm gonna just pick half the equation. My grandmothers were both docents at the Dayton Art Institute in Dayton, Ohio, and they encouraged me to go see the world. And they would take me to art shows, and they would take me to, and I thought that was just, they loved it, both of them separately. And one grandmother loved, Rubens and Van Gogh, and another grandmother loved Mondrian and Picasso. I mean, it was just completely different, but really good taste on both ends. One was more classical, one was very modern, but they both had this love, and they just dragged me around to like the small little artsy fartsy movie theaters to go to the artsy fartsy movies. And there was always just this perspective on art and beauty. There was kind of a reverence for it. And so when you look at whether it's the Beatles or Van Gogh or Picasso, I mean, there's so much to learn from them, or Da Vinci, or take your pick. And when you're curious about that, man, I mean, was Da Vinci. And one of the anecdotes that I love to share is that he studied cadavers in the morgue in Italy for 6 months. Do you know how it smelled down there? How must have smelled?
Oh
I
my
mean, there
God.
wasn't
Yeah.
refrigeration and all of the, like, he's down there because he was curious. He wanted to learn about human anatomy. There was no Instagram feed to become popular. He did it because he loved it. He died with tons of pictures that were not sold. Great work is only abandoned. He had not yet abandoned these. He was still working on them, including Mona Lisa. And so it's that side of, like, hey, war, and I learned all this is really only half of it. It's a part that gets the press. It's easy to digest, but it's the love that I got from my family and my grandmothers and the people that looked after me, right? And the way that was expressed. And then it's, the love that I got from my teammates that I gave back to them. And that transcends any of the stuff around the bullets and the guns and the sexy stuff and the first person shooter games and all that stuff, which is easy to kind of glorify. But the real glorification, the real magic is loving each other. It's just harder to put a bow on that.
I love that. That is beautiful. And honestly, throughout the conversation, I can pick up on that. You've talked about art, you've mentioned Da Vinci and all these other things. So like life is more complex than just a single thing. And you and me and everybody else, we're complex creatures. There's more to us than just one or two things. So thank you for sharing that. I wanted to go into really a really quick rapid fire round before we finish this off. Are you cool with that?
Let's do it.
All right. What is your favorite movie of all time?
My stock answer is Pulp Fiction. My real answer, I mean, I love the movie Moulin Rouge.
Okay. What band or artist is currently on repeat for you besides Smashing Pumpkins?
Well, it's always the Smashing Pumpkins, including their new album, but my middle child is taken to Let It Be by the Beatles. It's his favorite album. He has it on his little turntable, and we've been listening to that a ton, and it is just an amazing album.
And you're making memories with your kid. I love that. Favorite place to visit?
My dad's house, Ohio, kind of back to the roots.
Back to the roots. All right. When was the last time you were there? Like living there?
Oh, I never lived there. And my mom left. We moved to Florida. She went to she went to the University of Florida when I was 3. So I was her kind of the unofficial mascot of the women's tennis team in Gainesville. And my roots stayed in Ohio, but I really enjoy that. And but more importantly, I enjoy visiting anywhere with Emily.
Favorite pastime when you're not working?
Kind of taken to surfing a little bit. So I
Hmm.
wouldn't describe it as my favorite, but Emily wants to take family surf trips, so we're surfing and I'm kind of getting into it. I enjoyed writing a lot though as well, and I don't get to do quite enough of it right now, but I really enjoy writing and taking photos and sort of words and pictures and storytelling.
What kind of writing is that? Like, are you like fiction, nonfiction?
I mean, a lot of it has been in the guise of GORUCK, but there's other projects that I would really like to work on that are more kind of military veteran, autobiographical, but not entirely, and stuff like that.
All right, I'll look forward to that. One piece of advice for someone starting their own fitness brand.
Commit,
Most effective marketing strategy for GoRuck.
communicate your brand is the definition of marketing for me, and live the life. The most effective thing that we do is we live the life, and then we're just telling what we're doing.
What's the best book you've read recently?
Man, I read The Crossing by Cormac McCarthy, and I won't necessarily. It kind of it was really really hard to read, and I mean that from a lot of human nature in there, and a lot of love and pain, and beautifully written, and makes you think a lot about God and man and brothers and fathers and like the universal truths of life. It's just a really hard story to stomach.
Wow. Okay. I'm gonna have to look into that one. If you could have dinner with any historical figure, who would it be and why?
Like one of the guys that stormed D-Day, maybe, right? I'm not, like, I don't want someone kind of super famous, I guess. It's kind of, hey, what was it like? Tell me about growing up on a farm in Ohio and ending up in Normandy, and what was that, and what was that like? Stuff like that. I mean, any of the historical figures are fine. Jesus and Buddha and Confucius and all of that stuff, and Churchill and FDR. But I'm more interested in how people live.
Yeah, you just triggered a memory for me, which is growing up. You got to do reports or whatever
Yeah.
like that. And one of them, I called up an uncle out of St. Louis who I didn't know. It was,
Mm.
asking my dad, like, hey, my parents moved away from St. Louis when before I was born. So they were the ones that were like left the family kind of everybody lived in Missouri and came out west. And so I didn't know anybody, from the extended family side really other than my grandparents. So uh, my conversation with him was what it was like for him growing up. And it's such a fascinating thing that I think everybody should be doing that with their elders. Like before that information is knowledge is lost out of your own family tree, right? Like to hear about what it was like growing up during the Great Depression and, living on a farm and all those things from a different era is just super fascinating.
Or hey, elders, you probably got an iPhone. Record it. They're gonna want that someday.
For sure, right? And your parents, like, my parents are not getting any younger, so like, having them, we're actually doing that right now with our family, with our mom, is talking to her about what it was like growing up, so that we can record it and preserve those memories. So
Hmm.
it's really. Thank you for sharing that. Jason, before we wrap up, is there anything else you'd like to share with the viewers, with the community about GORUCK, yourself, what the future entails?
I mean, we're just really grateful for the people who have found us along the way, and we hope that we've provided some value and been useful, and we just want to keep paying it forward. So thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, you're welcome. And I want to thank you for all the wisdom you've shared, the information and opening up about GORUCK and yourself. I have a tremendous amount of respect for what you've built and what you've done and what you continue to build. It's super impactful, and I learned a lot just from our conversation today. And for those of you who have never gone rucking, uh, I would recommend, just from my limited experience of just starting, I'm finding it useful. And hearing again, Jason, your insight and your wisdom around it, it just sounds like something that could be tremendous value for people to pick up and learn more about. And don't forget, also for everybody viewing this, like, subscribe, sign up for notifications, get more of this. And Jason, have a wonderful day. Stay safe in these crazy weather scenarios that are happening, and I appreciate your time.
Thanks, man.
All right, until next time, we are out.